Today in Whitechapel, a peaceful UKIP protest was met with deliberate intimidation. The protesters had gathered lawfully and calmly to make their voices heard. No aggression, no disruption, just people exercising their democratic right to protest. But partway through, a group of men suddenly appeared, wearing full headgear, faces completely covered, and their intentions were obvious from the start. We'll dive into this story in today's video, but before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Right now, only 12% of viewers are subscribed, so join the community and help us grow. They weren't there to share an opinion or debate ideas. They were there to intimidate, standing in groups staring down protesters, trying to provoke fear through their presence. And the question is, why are people allowed to turn up to public demonstrations dressed like that, hiding who they are? If someone was assaulted or threatened, how could anyone identify them? That shouldn't be acceptable anywhere in the UK. Peaceful protest is a cornerstone of democracy. People should be able to gather, speak, and campaign without being harassed or made to feel unsafe. When masked groups start showing up to silence others, that's not counter-protest. That's targeted intimidation, plain and simple. This is where policing needs to be firm and fair. Those who turn up looking for trouble should be removed immediately, so peaceful demonstrations can continue without fear. Because what happened in Whitechapel wasn't a clash of opinions, it was an attempt to silence one side through threat and presence. And if we start allowing that, we lose one of the most basic freedoms this country still has: the right to stand up peacefully and be heard. Have a watch of this. What happened in Whitechapel should never become normal. Peaceful people came together to express their views, and they were met with masked intimidation. Not argument, not dialogue, just fear. That's not democracy, that's coercion. If we've reached a point where ordinary citizens can't stand in a public space without being stared down by men hiding their faces, then something has gone badly wrong. The right to protest peacefully belongs to everyone, no matter their politics. It's the job of the police and of the public to make sure that right is protected, not crushed by those who think they can silence others through fear. Because if intimidation wins, free speech loses. And that's a line the UK must never cross. In other news, a man said he was inspired by Home Alone and rigged houses with tripwires and explosives to protect his drug stash, a court heard. Ian Clawton, 60, and his wife Leslie, 59, rigged 3 properties in South Yorkshire with fishing wire, adapted crow scarers, stun guns, and a homemade flamethrower. The defendants, whose case is being heard in Doncaster Crown Court, deny several drugs and firearm offences that they are accused of. The heavily protected properties in Grimethorpe, Barnsley contained a variety of drugs and weapons. Mr. Clawton has pleaded not guilty of possession of prohibited firearms, 3 counts, possession of criminal property, and possession of explosive substances. His wife has pleaded not guilty to bringing a realistic imitation firearm into Great Britain, possessing Class B drugs with intent, possessing of criminal property, and being concerned in production of Class B drugs. Mr. Clawton has pleaded guilty of possession of marijuana, possession with intent to supply amphetamines and cannabis, and bringing a realistic imitation firearm into the country. Helen Chapman, the prosecutor of the case, said, "When police attended, they found properties that were heavily protected. They needed to be because they were full of drugs and cash. It appears both defendants had been engaged in the possession, supply, and production of illegal drugs for some time and had made a significant amount of money, some of which they kept squirreled away at those addresses. A tip-off from Border Force officers led to a dozen homes being evacuated in May 2024, the jury heard. Police raided the properties and found a stun gun hidden behind a fridge freezer, a homemade flamethrower made out of a fire extinguisher, and an air-powered gun. The prosecutor said that while Mr. Clawton denied possession of the weapons, there was evidence of him using them either to protect his stash of drugs or out of an interest in weapons and adapting them to make them dangerous, or perhaps a mixture of both. Ms. Chapman said that in that same property, the police found a large quantity of marijuana and a space full of cannabis plants with growing equipment. In a second property occupied by their daughter and her partner, the police found more cannabis plants and their growing equipment. The police found amphetamine in a Malteser's box and 1.5 kilograms of the drug in little snack bags in the bread bin. Police found more weapons in that property, including a crossbow bolts, and a knife. They also found an enormous amount of cash, which included £27,000 hidden in a sofa. The defendants claimed the money had come from their children, inheritance, and an old business. During his interview with police, Mr. Clawton explained his reasoning for the tripwires and weapons, saying they were needed for protection from intruders. Ms. Chapman said, "The devices were linked tripwires which would cause them to explode." If you are sitting there thinking that this sounds a little like the film Home Alone, then you would be correct. In fact, that is precisely what Ian Clawton said he was aiming for when he told the police about these devices. Ex-Commons leader Lucy Powell has won the race to succeed Angela Rayner as deputy leader of the Labour Party. Ms. Powell went up against Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson following Ms. Rayner's resignation in September. Sir Keir Starmer sacked Ms. Powell last month during a major cabinet reshuffle, prompting speculation that Ms. Phillipson was number 10's choice for the role. Ms. Powell secured 54% of the vote from Labour Party members, while Ms. Phillipson trailed behind on 46%. The turnout for the contest was particularly low at just 16%, compared to 59% in 2020. However, Ms. Powell's victory is also likely to give the Prime Minister a parliamentary headache by exposing the rift within the Labour Party over Sir Keir's leadership. Following her confirmed victory, Ms. Powell sent a direct message to the Prime Minister. "I am here to help you in that fight as your deputy leader," she said. But Ms. Powell also appeared to give a devastating assessment of Sir Keir's premiership. "We must give a stronger sense of our purpose, whose side we are on, and of our Labour values and beliefs," the Manchester Central MP added. "People feel that this government is not being bold enough in delivering the kind of change we promised." Ms. Powell, who rode back on her previous grooming gang comments in an interview last month, was not considered as number 10's top choice for the job. As Sir Keir's Education Secretary, Ms. Phillipson was considered the Prime Minister's loyalist ally in the race before topping the poll of Labour MPs. Following Ms. Powell's speech, Sir Keir admitted that the result in Carfully had been bad for Labour. He also accused Reform and the Tories of wanting to deport our neighbours with retrospective changes to indefinite leave to remain status. The Prime Minister said, "We must press ahead with a renewal that working people need to see. Now this week we received another reminder of just how urgent that task is. A bad result in Wales, I accept that, but a reminder that people need to look out their window and see change and renewal in their community, opportunities for their children, public services rebuilt, the cost of living crisis tackled. Renewal is the only answer to decline, to grievance and to division, and we have to keep going on that. It is the offer we must make to the people of Scotland, Wales and England next year. And that means we must come together. We must unite. We must keep our focus on what is, in my view, the defining battle for the soul of our nation." Sir Keir also hailed Ms. Powell and Ms. Phillipson in his congratulatory speech. The Prime Minister praised both candidates as strong and committed women. He added that Powell was a strong defender of Labour values. Ms. Powell is expected to play a leading role as Labour prepares to campaign across England, Scotland and Wales next May. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood
Confirm Ms. Powell will start knocking on doors straight away.
What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you have not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.